Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lara, adoptee, psychotherapist and adoption researcher. In my last video, I spoke to you about the research itself, the group under study, those that weren't included in the adoptee research and those that were, and the reasons why. Today, I'd like to talk to you about 6 things that your adoptee will be dealing with, either consciously or unconsciously, depending on the stage of development. The first of these is genetic memory. And genetic memory is the memory that is unconscious memory about the experiences in utero or pre-birth. There was a school of thought for a really long time that there was nothing pre-birth, that when babies were born, they kind of were the blank slate and had no previous experience to that moment. We now generally accept that not to be true. So in the case of your adoptee, genetic memory will really inform their earliest experiences of being. So if we just think about how that might impact an adoptee for a moment, their biological mother, if highly stressed, very depressed, very unwell, for example, all of those states would be transmitted to the baby in utero, and that would form part of the child's genetic memory. Number 2 is separation trauma, now widely accepted to be the case, but previously not thought of in terms of when that baby has been born and passed into a new family, the baby is entirely unaware. No matter the age or the developmental stage, there is research now that supports the idea that that child, having been removed from the biological parent, represents a separation trauma. There have been fMRI studies that look at how that trauma affects regions of the brain. And so, number 2 being separation trauma. So both number 1, genetic memory, and 2, separation trauma will be affecting your child, your adopted child, in an unconscious way. And if you didn't know about these things, then you're going to not really understand the challenges that that child is going to have when the child comes into your environment and over the next few years. Number 3 is how both of those previous experiences will affect their attachment. So number 3 is attachment. To what extent is that child able to bond with you? Now, my own experience of this was that I was adopted at 9 days old. My only trauma was the separation from my mother, and my genetic memory, I have a good guess, but who can know what that was about? What was really going on for me? And so my mother, at the time of adopting me in 1970, thought I was the blank slate. Little did she know that I came with a whole host of already experienced stuff that then played out and challenged my ability to bond and attached to my mum. Now, had she known this stuff at the time, she might have A, expected it, which would have led to B, not feeling quite so bad about herself, and C, being able to deal with it in ways different to the ways in which she did deal with it. Okay, so numbers 1 and 2 are going to affect, on some level, your child's ability to attach, or the style of attachment that child goes on to form and goes on to have with you, the adoptive parent. You know, very often, as I said in my own case, but very often there's a sense that it's very difficult to create the bond, that there's a sense that the child's rejecting of you, that you're putting all your love into this child, but because you don't know what the child's going through at in these very early stages of their lives, then you don't have a full picture about what the experience is for that child. So number 3 is the attachment. Number 4 is what I'm going to talk about as fantasizing about the biological parent. Now, some adoptive parents feel really challenged by that, as though because they bring the child in, they love the child as their own, they almost expect the reality that that child has another biological parent to not exist within the child's consciousness. Hopefully by this point, the child has been told that they're adopted. It's super important to kind of integrate that into their self-concept from an early stage and to then help them to deal with that reality. But with that, it can be a very normal process that I would call fantasizing about the biological parent. It's really normal, it's really natural, and has no reflection, or bears no reflection on you, the adopted parent, and how you're doing. It's just, as humans, we have an inbuilt kind of innate need to understand where we've come from. And so I think if you can understand that that's going to be part of it, then it's going to be a much easier path for you to tread. Number 4 is the fantasizing, or the kind of the thinking about the biological parent. Number 5, and as they go through their years at school, they start having friendships and peer groups, and as they go up through the years at school and into secondary school, as we call it here in the UK, or middle and upper school, what you realise then is, as an adoptee, things are slightly different for you. So the integration of the adopted status, let's say, into their identity. You know, we all have an identity. We all have a way of understanding ourselves in the world. And for an adoptee, they have to integrate their adopted status into their identity. Now, I am going to talk, obviously, that's the whole point of this channel, about how you can help your adoptee to achieve that. But that is something that your adoptee will be dealing with. How do they assimilate that truth, that, you know, reality into their identity? And so number 6 is the ways in which all of the previous number 5 are handled by your adoptee. And largely these fall into what we call internalizing behaviors and externalizing behaviors. Internalizing behaviors, pretty much as it sounds, that the child can be a bit withdrawn in their own head, you know, kind of thinking about things all up here, feeling a bit detached. My mum said that I was like the model child because she could just sit me somewhere for hours at a time and I wouldn't whinge or complain. I was so well behaved. Actually, I was in a type of shock-based trauma and I was trying to process my own reality very much in my own way. Obviously, as we grow up and we understand what is going on for us and we're able to consciously begin to process, you know, we start to think about things like rejection and abandonment and how those themes are playing into our lives, and how well we deal with those truths will very much depend on the way that you, the adoptive parent, handles those conversations with your child. So largely number 6, internalizing behavior, maybe a bit withdrawn, hard to kind of get through to, feeling a little bit distant. That was my reality. But then for a lot of people, it's the opposite, which is the externalizing behavior, where you see really challenging behaviors, lying, pushing you to your absolute limit, seeing how far they can test you, see whether you really give a damn about them because previously they've been rejected and now they want to just really prove to themselves that they're worthy of your love. All of those types of behaviors. So all of these 6 things are going to make your relationship with your adoptee somewhat challenging from time to time, but so rich and so worthwhile and so rewarding if you can understand what is going on for your child. And actually that is one of the findings from one of the research papers that I looked at, was that the ability to mentalize, or the ability to kind of understand these things, if you can just understand what your child is going through at various points throughout their life, it will help you to take the spotlight off of you and what you may be doing right or wrong and onto what they're going through, which is in itself helpful. Because at these very early stages, it's very little to do with what you're bringing in terms of whether they go through these processes or not, because all adoptees will go through this. And then what you can do is to help that process with some of the tools that I'm going to be talking about over the next few videos and over the next few weeks. So I hope that you find this really helpful and useful. and to kind of help you, give you a little bit of insight into how you might get the absolute best out of your relationship with your adoptee. Thank you for watching.